Elena Voss had learned, over 3 years as Luna of the Ashgrove Pack, that love and duty did not always walk the same road. She had come into this world of wolves as an outsider, a human-born woman chosen by fate to be mate to Damian Cross, the Alpha King. In the beginning, no one believed she belonged. Warriors whispered behind her back. Elders questioned whether a bond of fate could ever be as strong as a bond of bloodline. But Elena had not tried to prove herself with words. She had simply worked, day after day, until the pack could no longer deny what she had become to them. She ran the healing house at the edge of the Packlands, a modest stone building that had once been half forgotten before she filled it with herbs, careful hands, and long nights spent beside injured warriors who had nowhere else to turn. She learned every wolf's name, every child's fears, every old grievance simmering beneath the surface of pack life. Slowly, the whispers changed. The pack that once doubted her began to trust her, and trust, Elena knew, was worth more than any title. But there was one person whose doubt never softened. Serafina, the Dowager Luna, mother to Damian, had never accepted Elena. To Serafina, a Luna was not simply a mate. She was a symbol, a bloodline, a piece in the endless chess game the packs played with alliances and power. Elena, born outside the world of wolves, could never be more to her than a temporary arrangement forced by fate. For 3 years, Serafina had tolerated the mating bond because tradition demanded it. But tolerance, Elena would soon learn, was not the same as acceptance. The trouble began quietly, the way most storms do. Whispers moved through the pack that the council was growing restless. The neighboring packs, especially the northern pack, were rising in strength, and old alliances were shifting. Some elders believed Ashgrove needed to secure its position through a stronger political bond, something beyond mere friendship between packs. And Serafina, who had waited 3 long years for exactly this kind of opportunity, seized it with both hands. At the gathering of the 5 packs, held once every few years in the Great Hall of the Ashgrove territory, Serafina rose before the assembled leaders and made her proposal. She spoke of tradition, of duty, of the old custom among royal bloodlines that allowed an Alpha King to take a second Luna if it served the strength of the pack. She spoke of Isolde Rourke, daughter of the Northern Pack's Alpha, a woman of pure lineage and proven strength, as the ideal choice to stand beside Damian. She did not call it a betrayal, she called it duty. Elena sat at Damian's side as his mother's words filled the hall, and she felt the eyes of every leader, every elder, every warrior turned toward her, waiting to see how she would react. She kept her face calm, her hands folded in her lap, though inside, her heart was pounding so hard she feared everyone could hear it. She waited for Damian to speak. She waited for him to stand, to silence his mother's proposal with the same certainty he had once used to claim Elena as his mate before the entire pack. He did not. Damian shifted in his seat. He glanced at his mother, then at the council members nodding slowly at her words, then, finally, at Elena. She saw something flicker across his face, something that looked almost like guilt, but he said nothing. The silence stretched long enough that even the youngest pack members in the room understood its meaning. A king who does not immediately refuse has already begun to consider. Elena did not cry. She did not raise her voice or beg him to speak in her defense. She simply reached up, unclasped the pendant he had given her on the night of their mating ceremony, a small silver crescent moon that marked her as Luna, and placed it gently on the table before the entire council. "A king who negotiates his mate's worth," she said, her voice steady though her hands trembled, "has already chosen his answer." Then she rose, turned, and walked out of the hall. No one moved to stop her. Not the elders, stunned into silence. Not Serafina, whose triumphant expression faltered the moment she realized what she had truly set into motion. And not Damian, who sat frozen, watching the woman he loved walk away from him without once looking back. Elena did not return to the healing house that night. She packed only what she could carry, left before dawn, and crossed the border out of Packlands into the human world she had left behind so many years ago. She had grown up in a small town far from wolves and packs and councils, and though she had built an entirely different life since then, some part of her still remembered the roads, the people, the rhythm of a world that had never known what she truly was. What Elena did not fully understand, not until later, was the price her departure would exact on the pack she left behind. A mating bond between an alpha and his Luna was not a simple promise. It was a connection woven into the very fabric of a wolf's strength, feeding an alpha's power, steadying his mind, grounding him against the weight of leadership. When Elena walked away, the bond did not break cleanly. It frayed, slowly and painfully, and every wolf in the pack could feel the change in their alpha. Damien grew quieter in the weeks that followed. His control, once effortless, began to waver during pack meetings. Warriors who had always found strength in his presence now noticed the tired lines beneath his eyes, the hesitation in his voice, where certainty used to live. The council, who had been so eager to see him take a second mate for the sake of strength, watched instead as their alpha grew weaker with every passing day. Whatever strength they had hoped Isolde might bring, it did nothing to fill the space Elena had left behind. News spread quickly among the 5 packs, as news always does. A Luna who publicly rejected her title before an entire gathering was not a small matter, and packs that had once respected Ashgrove's strength under a unified mating began to whisper doubts about Damien's judgment. If he could not hold his own mate's loyalty, some argued, how could he hold alliances between packs? Isolde's father, watching the situation unfold from a distance, quietly withdrew his daughter's proposal. He had no interest in binding his family to a pack now seen as unstable, regardless of what his own ambitions might have hoped for. The alliance Serafina had worked so hard to create collapsed before it ever truly began. Serafina found herself, for the first time in years, without the influence she had always taken for granted. The council members who once nodded along with her proposals now hesitated to meet her eyes. Whispers turned toward her instead of Elena, questioning whether the Dowager Luna's ambitions had cost the pack more than they had ever gained. Damien searched for Elena the moment the weight of what he had allowed to happen fully settled over him. He tracked her scent across the borders of 3 different territories, following faint traces that grew weaker with each passing week. It took him nearly 2 months to find where she had settled, in a small town far from any pack lands, where she had quietly built a new life for herself. Elena had found work at a modest clinic on the edge of town, offering the same careful, patient healing she had once given to wolves who trusted her with their wounds. The people there did not know what she truly was. They only knew a gentle, skilled woman who had appeared one day and quietly become someone the whole town relied on. She had made friends, formed something like a found family among people who cared for her without any knowledge of packs or bonds or alpha kings. For the first time in a long while, Elena began to remember what it felt like to be valued simply for who she was, not for the title she carried, or the political weight she represented. When Damien finally found her, he did not come as a king. He left behind his guards, his warriors, every symbol of the power and title that had once stood between them. He arrived alone, standing outside the small clinic where Elena worked, looking nothing like the confident alpha who had once claimed her before an entire pack. He looked, instead, like a man who understood, at last, exactly what he had lost. Elena saw him through the window before he ever knocked. Her hands stilled over the paperwork she had been reviewing, and for a long moment, she simply stared, unsure whether the ache in her chest was anger, grief, or something far more complicated than either. She stepped outside, arms crossed, keeping distance between them, even as her heart betrayed her with its uneven rhythm. "Why are you here, Damien?" He did not reach for excuses. He did not mention the council, the alliances, or the political pressures that had once seemed so urgent. Instead, he said the only thing that truly mattered. "You never needed that pendant to be my Luna. I was the one who failed to remember that. I let silence answer for me when you needed me to speak, and I have spent every day since regretting it." Elena's throat tightened, but she held her ground. "Your mother wanted another Luna standing beside you. You didn't refuse her." "I should have," Damien admitted, his voice rough with something Elena had never heard from him before, not even in their most private moments. "I let myself believe, for one terrible moment, that duty and love could be separated, that I could weigh alliances against what I already had with you. I was wrong. I have been paying for that mistake every single day since you left, and I will keep paying for it for the rest of my life, If that is what it takes for you to believe, I mean what I am saying now." Elena studied him carefully, searching his face for the hesitation she had seen in the council hall, the flicker of doubt that had once cost her everything. She found none of it. What she found instead was a man stripped bare of every title, every expectation, standing before her with nothing left to offer but the truth. "The pack needs a strong alpha," she said quietly, "not one who requires healing every time his mother demands something new." "The pack needs an alpha who knows what truly makes him strong," Damien answered. "For 3 years, I thought it was my title, my bloodline, my position among the 5 packs. It took losing you to understand. It was never any of those things. It was you, standing beside me, believing in a version of leadership built on trust rather than fear or duty alone." Elena did not answer right away. She thought of everything she had built in this small town, the trust of the people who relied on her, the peace she had found in a life free from council halls and political games. She thought of the healing house she had left behind, the warriors who had once doubted her and slowly come to see her as family. She thought of 3 years spent loving a man who had, in one crucial moment, allowed silence to speak louder than loyalty. But she also remembered every quiet moment before that gathering, the years of genuine partnership, the countless nights Damien had stood beside her without hesitation, defending her against every doubt the pack had ever raised. One moment of failure did not erase 3 years of truth, though it had certainly tested it beyond anything she had imagined possible. "You will have to prove it," she finally said, not with words in front of a council, but every single day, in ways no one else will ever see. "I will," Damien said, and for the first time since he arrived, something like hope flickered across his tired face. "For as long as it takes." Elena did not promise to return that day. She did not fall into his arms or declare that all was forgiven in an instant, because healing, she knew better than anyone, was never that simple. But she allowed him to stay a while longer, to sit with her outside the clinic as the sun began to set, to speak honestly about everything that had happened, and everything that needed to change, if there was ever to be a path back to what they once had. Back in the Packlands, word soon spread of where their Alpha King had gone and why. Serafina, watching her influence continue to crumble in his absence, began to understand at last the true cost of the ambition she had once mistaken for duty. The council, still uncertain about the future of their pack's leadership, could only wait and watch, aware now that whatever strength Ashgrove needed would never come from titles or bloodlines alone. It would come, if it came at all, from a Luna who had walked away, rather than accept anything less than she deserved, and an Alpha King who had finally learned that some things could never be replaced, no matter how great the pressure to try.